mission statement, which says that our mission is to glorify God by making disciples who connected community, right? Grow in faith and serve in joy. Now, last week we began to kind of hone in on that phrase, connecting in community. We talked about that elusive thing we call fellowship. This week we're actually going to spend a second week on a specific application of this idea of connecting people, and that is helping people connect through hospitality in the church. As we come together and worship, how do we worship in such a way that we help people connect to the Lord Jesus Christ? Brent has our Old Testament reading, which is Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 17 through 9.
For the Lord your God is God of gods, and Lord of lords, the great God and mighty and awesome, who is not partial, he takes no pride, who executes justice for the orphan and the widow, and protects the strangers, providing them food and clothing. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Amen. And now from the New Testament, the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verses 1 through 2. Very brief passage, but a very, very important one. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that some have entertained angels without even knowing it. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so some have entertained angels without knowing it. The reference to the original readers would have been clear. It comes from Genesis chapter 18, where Abraham sees three men off in the distance, comes out of his home, runs up to meet them, and pleads with them to come and to stay in his home and help him to provide hospitality for them. He provides them water so that they can wash their feet. He has Sarah cook some of the finest bread cakes for them. He provides them with curds. I don't know exactly what curds are, but I imagine some of you do. He provides them with curds, and then he goes out and he kills one of their finest calves, and he serves them this luscious banquet, basically. Following Abraham's hospitality, or perhaps because of Abraham's hospitality, the men revealed themselves to be messengers of the Lord, and they announced that Sarah was soon going to have a much longed-for child. As the saying goes, Abraham entertained angels unawares, and he was blessed for his efforts, and we also shall be blessed. In the ancient world, hospitality was a sacred duty. It wasn't merely a courtesy, but rather it was a sacred obligation that was laid upon each and every member of society to care for the stranger. To care for guests well was to bring honor upon oneself and one's family. To fail in this sacred obligation was to bring dishonor upon oneself and one's family for generations to come, in fact. It was so important, the Bible teaches, because hospitality towards strangers is rooted in the very heart of God. Deuteronomy 10, for instance, says that God himself, quote, loves strangers, providing them with food and clothing. In other words, God is a hospitable God, a welcoming God who cares for strangers. Therefore, we read in verse 19, you shall also love the stranger. And then a new motivation is offered for extending hospitality. For you were once strangers in the land of Egypt. Israel is to extend hospitality to her neighbors and the aliens and exiles, by the way, we learn in other passages, because they themselves were once strangers and aliens and exiles. As they were welcomed by Pharaoh way back at the beginning of their history with Joseph's day, so they are also to offer hospitality to those who are strangers in their land. And This indeed has profound implications on multiple levels, including the national level, including to our nation. America, as Pope Francis reminded Congress on Thursday, is indeed a nation of immigrants and foreigners, and we must extend to them the same opportunities that we would like to have if we were in their shoes. That, said Francis, is nothing more than the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, if you were a stranger in this land, if you were a refugee, how would you want to be treated by other people? Francis says that the current refugee crisis and immigration policies are not exempted from this golden rule. But today our focus is not on politics, but rather upon the church. We, above all institutions, above nations even, are commanded to extend hospitality to the stranger, to the alien, to the refugee. Like Israel, we are commanded to put ourselves in the stranger's place and to see our home, in this case, St. Paul Presbyterian Church, through their eyes and to extend hospitality accordingly, to meet them where they are. Now, most of us, if you're like me, when you think about hospitality, you think about cookies and punch and coffee after worship, right? And indeed, that is a part of hospitality. But it is so much more than that. And we want to talk about that a little bit today. Most people, before they ever have a bite of a cookie, for instance, will have a definite idea about whether St. Paul Presbyterian really and truly wants them to be part of their membership or not, part of their fellowship or not. As soon as they come into our parking lot, for instance, they will be looking for a parking place. Do we have spots reserved for the stranger, for the guest in our midst? Check mark. Yes, we do, don't we? And that is awesome. But did you know that churches with top-notch hospitality also have parking lot attendants? You know, somebody wearing one of those, neon-colored vests and so forth. Their job is to help people find a parking spot, to lend a hand to those with physical challenges, especially on icy days, welcome them and point them to the entrance of the sanctuary, how to get to worship, and even to walk with them, umbrella in hand, on rainy days. Now, wouldn't that be nice? Not just for first-time guests, but for all of our members here at St. Paul. Wouldn't that make you feel like your presence here was noticed and that you were valued, that you were coming home? And indeed, as I say, we should be doing this for everyone in our congregation every single Sunday, or at least as often as we are able to do it. Because everyone matters to God and to God's people here. By the way, did you notice that I did not call those who are coming here for the first time visitors? We, as a congregation, have to banish this word from our vocabulary. They are not visitors. Visitors come, and then what do visitors do? Visitors go, right? That is not our goal here, to have people come and go. Our goal is to welcome people in such a profound way that they want to stay, that they say, this is my spiritual home, this is my church home. And so we're not going to call them visitors, we're going to call them first-time guests. They are guests here in our church home. In fact, no, that doesn't even quite cut it either, does it? They are guests in God's home. And we, every one of us here, is a host. And we have been given the privilege of welcoming people into our Father's home. So they're not visitors, they're guests. But back to our guests. They come to our parking lot, okay? At the moment, there is no one there to welcome them or to point them to the entrance of the worship center here, nor are there any signs to point them to where they would go for worship from the outside. Now, we do have one sign on the exterior of our church building. Did you know that? It's an old, faded black and white sign that says church office. And it's not very good looking. But if you want to find the church office during the week, we realize that's important, and so we have a sign for that. But worship on Sundays, no sign. None whatsoever. None. Now, inside, we do have some signs. Janet Nyhart has made some very attractive signs that are in various locations, but they're not really everywhere that we need them to be. Experts tell us that when a guest comes into your building, at any particular place, they ought to be able to see a sign to three different things: the nursery, the restroom, and the worship center. Nursery, restroom, worship center. Any place in this building, you ought to be able to see a sign pointing you to those things. So M&E has a little bit of work, membership and evangelism, to do on this. They are working on this, and perhaps you'd like to join them. Jana, raise your hand. There she is. She's the woman if you'd like to help with signage here, okay? By the way, did you notice how I call it a worship center instead of a sanctuary? Now, you may not believe this, but the majority of people under 30 years of age do not know what a sanctuary is. Nonetheless, a narthex, a chancel, or a vestibule. I got to tell you, friends, this is all church talk. It's religious language, and people who aren't religious or churchy don't have any clue about what we're talking about when we use that little insider language. And so we've got to let go of that, friends. We must let go of that. We have to call it the worship center lobby. That they get. Narthex? What the heck is that? I don't even know what a narthex. I had to look it up. What is a narthex? Oh, it's that area. It's an addition, basically, an entrance in a mini. We don't have one of those. We got a worship center lobby. They get that. But back to our guests. It's all about the guests, right? Let's say that they make it into our building and they get pointed in the direction of worship. What impression does our building make upon them? Is our decor up to date? Or is it perhaps not quite so much up to date? Is it clean? Is it attractive? Amazingly, studies show that first-time guests, the first topic of conversation that they have after they have visited a new worship service is not the sermon. It is not the music. Are you ready for this? It is the restrooms. The restrooms. If the restrooms are either above par and have extra special nice touches, such as little mints or things like that, or if the decor is really nice, or if the restroom is really under par, that is the number one thing, the first thing that they talk about when they get home. The moral of the story: every part of our church life and our building and our facilities, every part is important. Every detail matters. But back to our guests. It's all about the guests, right? Let's say that they make it into our sanctuary. Do you know what is likely to be the most awkward moment for them in our whole worship service? Ironically, and perhaps sadly, it will be the passing of the peace. It will be a terrible time, a moment of sheer terror for many of our guests. It will be. You may not think it will, but it will be. Now, Whitey has been timing, okay, our meet and greet time, as most of us call it, okay? And did you know that we will often spend 3 minutes or so, sometimes longer, it would go longer if we would let it, 3 minutes in this congregation meeting and greeting every worship service. And no doubt that is because some of us think that it is our solemn duty to go around and to shake hands and to hug and to personally greet every single person In this worship center, I almost said sanctuary, right? Every single person in this space, every single Sunday, we do that because we think that that is being friendly. Oh my goodness, how can anybody not enjoy that? But imagine that you don't know a soul here. This is not going to be a pleasant experience for you, especially if you are a more introverted person. And some of our newer members have shared this with us that, well, they've kind of got used to it, but it still is a little bit nervous. You know who you are. I won't single you out to embarrass you. Even if several people come up to new members and introduce themselves and shake hands with them, they will still find the experience overwhelming and reinforcing of the idea that they are a stranger here. They do not belong. But we can make this work because there is something of great value to having this time. First, we are indeed, session has said, we're going to have to cut down on our time. You'll notice today, I think I cut it down to 2 minutes. Okay? And we're still milling around a little bit, and that's okay. We've got to cut it down. This thing has just gotten out of control. I mean, some of you must come with sneakers, ready to try to run around everything. The other thing that we can do to make this work for everybody, including our church members, is to train our whole congregation on how it is that you can meet and greet a newcomer to worship. Now, you may think you know how to do this, but there actually is a right way and a wrong way to do this. You see, if all church members know that it is their job not just to shake somebody's hand and then depart with a newcomer, but it is their job to shake somebody's hand and to stay with that new person or that new couple or family for the entire 2 minutes, then it is not such a daunting experience for those who are first-time guests in our midst. It reminds me of what the late, great theologian, German theologian, Karl Barth once said.
Pastor Bill, do we have to hear about another dead theologian?
Oh my goodness. Jana.
I'm on membership and evangelism, and I think I have some better ideas of how to do that.
Jana.
It's a miracle! We have a guest today. Right here! Come on up! Come on up here! It's your lucky day! It's our lucky day! We have a guest! Dust off the visitor hat! And what is your name? What? Melissa! She's our friend! We will love her till the end! Let's do the visitor dance! To the left, to the right. Yay, Melissa! Thank you for coming, Melissa. You can have a seat.
Jana, I really love your energy and your enthusiasm, and you indeed obeyed the first rule of visiting, and that is, first rule about guests who visit us, and that is, don't ignore me. You certainly didn't ignore Melissa over there, but on the other hand, you really embarrassed her. People want to be anonymous when they come to church for the first several times, okay? So, it was a good try, your heart was in the right place, but you just can't embarrass people like that. You can't put them on the spot. They need to be a little bit invisible.
I'm sorry, Bill. I'm sorry, Melissa. But we have another visitor, so I have another chance and another really good idea that I have. I see another visitor here. Can you stand up? Oh, I see that you're all alone in the pews. Oh. Are you single?
Yes.
Are you a widow?
Oh, no.
Are you divorced?
Absolutely not.
Oh, you're still looking.
so appreciate that. But you kind of pried a little bit much there, didn't you? And you kind of painted her into a corner, and you kind of overwhelmed our guests in that stop. So don't overwhelm guests with overly personal questions. Yeah. Thank you, though. I appreciate your effort.
For me, we have a lot of guests today.
Oh,
I
how good
see
is
one
that?
more over here. Yes, yes, yes. Fist bump, fist bump. Yay, yay. Oh my goodness. What is your name? Well, what'd you say your name was?
Squeaky.
Oh, okay, Squirmy.
No, squeaky.
Squirmy?
Squeaky. You know,
Squeaky.
squeaky leather.
Ah, okay. Is this your first visit?
I've been coming for about 6 months.
Oh, great. We have a lot to offer at this church. We need you. I'm thinking that, do you like to motorcycle?
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking you could start a motorcycle club for the youth group.
Oh.
Or we need people to sing in the choir. We need a low C bell. We need people to join disciples. We need people to be the lay readers. We've got all kinds of jobs for you. Would you be interested in any of those? And also, we need people just to work on the yard. We need people to teach Bible school. We have plenty of things for you to do.
I'll let you know.
Okay, you seem a little overwhelmed, so maybe we'll let you sit down. Sorry, sweetie.
Well, thank you, Jana. I really, again, appreciate your energy about this, but you don't want to overwhelm guests either. Nobody wants to come to church and feel like they're a commodity, right? Or somebody's project, or fresh meat, as we often will say. Nobody wants that. So I know, it's okay, it's okay. Your heart is in the right place, Jana.
As I look around, I think I only have one more chance.
Oh, only one more, but there is one more. Thanks for the God. God's good. God is good. You'll get it right. I'm sure you'll get it right.
No, not a visitor. One more, yes.
Right, yes, yes.
Oh, hello. Good morning.
Hello.
My name is Jana.
I'm Linda.
Hi, Linda. Have we met before?
No, nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you, too. How long have you been coming here?
This is my first visit.
Oh, that's really nice. And what do you do during the week? On your days not church?
I enjoy gardening.
You do? Oh, we have a garden here. And perhaps during fellowship time, I could kind of drive you out there and show it to you if you'd be
I
interested.
enjoy that very
And
much.
also, would you like to meet our pastor?
Yes, I
And I'll introduce you to him so.
Hello there. Hi. Hi, Linda, Bill O'Connell. Welcome. We're glad to church. And then we would continue on in our conversation.
Did I do better that time?
You did great. Let's hear it from Jana. What Jana and Val just demonstrated for us is called the welcome waltz. Do we have that slide up there now? This can be used not only during the meet and greet time, during passing the peace, but anytime you meet somebody or encounter somebody that you don't know well in the church. Now, there are a couple steps to the welcome waltz. First of all, introduce yourself, okay? I know that seems obvious, but so often we forget that. Hello, my name is so-and-so. What's yours? Then listen carefully for what their name is, and then if you're like me, nope, not ready for number 2 yet. If you're like me, you will forget that name. So the key is to immediately repeat that name. And so you say, welcome, Susan, or Linda, or Bob, or whatever it is. And use that word welcome. It is a wonderful word. It still conveys warmth and personal caring to people. So, welcome, Susan. Have we met before? You'll notice that we did not say, is this your first time here? Because indeed, as one of our, I think it was Squeaky, when we were introducing Squeaky, we asked her, how long is this your first time here? She said, no, I've been coming here for 6 months. And then don't you feel awkward, right? Because you didn't notice Squeaky, and that's not a good situation. So don't ask that question. Have we met before is the proper question. Then third step in the welcome waltz is, oh, well, how long have you been coming here? Again, open-ended question allows them to answer that. And then, what keeps you busy during the week? Do you notice that I did not ask, what do you do? Okay? Because what if the person is unemployed? Or what if the person is unable to work? Or what if the person is a stay-at-home mother? All of those things can be awkward conversations. So make it open. What keeps you busy during the week? That way they may decide to share with you their hobbies, they may share their job, they may share their family, they may share anything that makes them comfortable. Then you need to listen carefully, and you need to continue to interact and build bridges, build points of connection. Jana in the last one picked up that our guest, Linda, was a gardener, and so use that as a point of connection. Now, then there are bonuses that you can get also in the welcome waltz. Bonus points are available for this. First is to offer to go with them to fellowship time. Okay? Now, I know that we think that our cookies are so good that people are just dying to cross that 100 feet into Fellowship Hall to go and experience them. But the truth of the matter is that they don't know how good our cookies and our cheese and crackers are. And again, it is an extremely daunting experience if you don't know a soul. We think they're going to come to fellowship time. Guess what? They don't. And they will not unless we personally offer to come with them to that fellowship time. You know, we have a wonderful time for cookies and snacks after our service. Could I meet you here at your pew here, and would you go with me? Would you like to go with me to fellowship time? Bonus points. Another possibility is to introduce that person to the pastor or to another person with similar interests. So you discover that the person is a hunter. Okay? So you're not a hunter, but you're during that meet and greet time or after worship, are going to take that person and say, oh, you've got to meet Joe. Joe loves hunting. And you can make a connection that way. It's all about building bridges. Now, this is really, really important stuff. So we in Membership and Evangelism talked this out, and we decided that we are actually going to give you, the average person in the pew, the opportunity to practice this right now. Because if you practice it, you will remember it. But if you don't, you probably will forget this. This is top-notch, #1 priority here at St. Paul Presbyterian Church. So, I want you to pair up, okay, and to find somebody, and you figure out who's going to be the guest first, and who's going to be the church member. I'm actually glad today that there are no first-time guests with us, because that could be awkward, couldn't it? I want you to pair up, though, okay, and we're going to give you 2 minutes to practice the welcome waltz. It's up there on the screen. Take a look at it, okay, and walk yourself through this, okay? So, on your marks, get set, pair up, and go. You got 2 minutes, and then I'll tell you the flip, okay? You can depart from that. But you're getting the idea. Open-ended questions. Don't ask them what they do, okay? Ask them open-ended questions like how long is it coming in. All right, let's pray. Gracious God, thank you for the love that you give us in Jesus Christ. Thank you that you have welcomed us. Help us here at St. Paul to intentionally welcome those who are first-time guests with us. Help us to open our home to them, our church home, your church home to them, so that they might join us in this church family. And all of God's people said together,
Amen.